Okay, let's read about Emancipation Proclamation. Before the Civil War, there were millions of African slaves in the southern United States. Slaves were considered property and could be bought and sold. They belonged to their masters, so therefore they had no rights. Slaves could not learn to read or write. They had to have permission to leave the plantation. They could not vote or testify in court against a white person, and they could not own land or property. Slavery was hereditary. In other words, if a child was born to enslaved parents, the child was also owned by the mother's master and could be sold away from his family. By the 1750s, many people were beginning to see slavery as an evil that should be eliminated. However, the southern plantation owners growing cash crops like cotton and tobacco were not convinced. They felt the economy relied on slave labor. Abraham Lincoln was also known before he became president as an opponent of slavery. When he ran for office in 1860, he made it known that he wanted to stop the spread of slavery. He became president in 1861, and this was one of the many things that angered the southern states. Several states seceded from the United States and formed their own country called the Confederacy. This shocked Lincoln, as he wanted the country to be united. Unfortunately, it was the start of a 4-year civil war between the states in the North and the South over many issues, but the primary issue was slavery. President Lincoln was a man of his word. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order given by President Lincoln to free the slaves on January 1st, 1863. It also allowed slaves to fight in the war against the Confederacy. The order did free about 50,000 slaves. But until Congress could pass a law, there was still millions of enslaved people. After the North won the Civil War, Congress was able to amend the Constitution in 1865. Lincoln was proud to see the 13th Amendment make slavery illegal. Okay, we have the vocabulary word seceded earlier in the text, and seceded means to leave or withdraw from a union or break away. Today we're going to learn about Sojourner Truth. One of the most powerful abolitionists was also one of the biggest supporters of women's rights. She was born Isabel Baumfree, but most know her as Sojourner Truth. Isabella was born around the year 1797 in New York. She was born a slave. She had at least 10 siblings, but she did not know them because they were all sold very quickly. Isabella was sold 3 times before she was a teenager. Her last owner, John Dumont, promised to free her if she was a faithful slave. Unfortunately, he did not stay true to his word. Isabella escaped to freedom in 1826 and found a Quaker family who paid Dumont $20 to release Isabella to them. Quakers were people who believed in equal rights for all, so they were against slavery and believed in women's rights. On July 4th, 1827, Isabella was legally free when the state of New York passed its own Emancipation Act, setting New York slaves free. In 1843, Isabella changed her name to Sojourner Truth. Sojourner means traveler, and that is just what she did. She traveled all over the country preaching from the Bible, trying to rid the country of slavery, and supporting women's rights. Her memorable speeches, such as "Ain't I a Woman?" helped her meet many famous abolitionists and women's rights activists, like Frederick Douglass, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Sojourner was also known to be outspoken and loud, and 6 feet tall. She had a way of making people listen. Sojourner even visited President Abraham Lincoln in 1864 in the White House. Lincoln knew of Truth's work to end slavery and fight for women's rights, but Sojourner admitted that until he had taken office, she had never heard of him. Nevertheless, she appreciated his work to end slavery. Sojourner Truth's entire life was devoted to being an abolitionist and supporter of women's rights. She was able to see the end of slavery, but it was almost 40 years after her death before women had the right to vote. As you can see at the bottom, it has a vocabulary word to help us understand. Abolitionist, which was used in the story, are people who are opposed to slavery who fight to end it.